everybody. Raina here with Leanna. Yay! Joining us from the bookstore. We will be talking this evening with Travis Baldree. He is a New York Times bestselling author, a full-time audiobook narrator who's lent his voice to hundreds of stories. You've probably heard him if you listen to audiobooks, especially if you listen to fantasy audiobooks. Before that, he spent decades designing and building video games, which is exciting. I want to talk to him a little bit about that. He lives in the Pacific Northwest with his very patient family. If you do all of that creative work, you have to have a patient family and a small nervous dog, which I also will talk to him about because I have a small nervous dog. His first book, Legends Lattes, is a favorite at the bookstore, and his newest one, Bookshops and Bonedust. Leanna, do you have a copy of that? Did you? Oh, yay! See, together we have both books. Are both shop favorites. We all love them, and that is exactly why we asked Travis here so that we can talk to him. But y'all can listen in the conversation, and if you have any questions, type them in the comments, and we will answer them during the event. So, without further ado, let me click this button. Welcome, Travis. Hi, how are you?
Hi. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, well, thank you for joining us. This is just for us, and everyone else just gets to enjoy this conversation. So
just on for the ride.
Exactly. I always love having like podcasters that are audiobook narrators on because look at that microphone.
Look at that equipment. I know.
Oh my gosh.
This 1-ton booth around me, this acoustic paneling. It's so sexy.
It is. You have no idea.
Get out there and work the proximity effect on the microphone. Yeah.
Ooh, that ASMR.
So Ziggy has a question right off the bat. Had no clue Travis was an audiobook narrator. How did you get into it?
I started doing it on the side for fun. There is a website called acx.com that Amazon Audible runs that facilitates getting indie audiobooks made between small pubs and indie authors and narrators. And I stumbled across it, and my kids didn't need me to read to them anymore. And I had some of the equipment from game development for doing voice recording, and I started doing it for fun. And it turned out that I liked it, and I was pretty good at it. And people kept asking me to do it. So eventually I retired from games to do it full time.
Nice. Okay, that leads to a question that I was wondering about too. Did you do voice acting with the video game developing that you did?
Only at the very end through necessity. I was a software engineer and I ran a couple of game companies. And so it was not in my background. I'm not an acting kid. I didn't do theater. So it's very odd that I'm doing it at all.
I have a theater background and I love listening like to audiobooks, and people have told me like, oh, you should, they love when I'm reading. Like I had the same thing, like when I'm reading. And there were a couple of road trips that my mom and I took, and I would read the book. This is before when audiobooks only came on cassettes, and like we have to take them all with us, right?
A big brick of the thing, very cumbersome.
Exactly. And I would read them and I'm like, okay, well, this is fun, but I don't know if it's something I want to do. Like
it's physically demanding to read for hours and hours at a time.
I imagine it is. How long do you read at a time? Like if you're gonna read your book, how long would that take? I have no idea.
I probably spend 4 to 5 hours in the booth a day. Usually that gives me 3 hours of audio. Because you got your mistakes and your pauses and your whatever. But yeah. So I usually do one big morning session and one big evening session. Right. I have one to do this evening.
Oh, there you go. So you'll do like a 4-hour session this evening.
I'll do probably like 2 hours. Because I've already done the first half of my day. So total for the day, I'll spend like 4 to 5 hours total, split in half. So yeah.
Nice. All right. I had no idea.
It's a lot of time to sit in a box unless you got to like it.
You got to enjoy the box.
You got to enjoy the box. You got to enjoy reading aloud.
Yeah. Have you ever done audio for a book you didn't like the book? Or do you choose like
every narrator has done that. Every narrator has done that. Okay. That's not if there's a narrator who hasn't done that, I don't know who it is. Every book is not for you. I mean, the same way if you went down and picked up a book off a shelf, every book's not going to be for you. You're going to put some down. Well, you don't do that as a narrator. You get on board with the fact that the book is for somebody else, and you make sure that you read the book for them.
Right. You're just been hired to do the voice acting, narration, not it. You have no say in the book necessarily.
I mean, there's times where you have a say. Obviously, people can offer you a book, and you could say no. I love hearing the band in the background.
Yeah, that is a marching band going by my house.
That's amazing. That's amazing. That's a cool musical background.
Best city in the world.
But yeah, you can obviously turn books down, but a lot of books you don't know, you accept them before they're even finished. So you end up scheduling things a lot in advance. So I have a lot of books on my schedule. I don't even know what they are. They're not even written yet. So I'll get what I get when they show up.
So in that case, you just get like, it's going to be this many pages
approximately this many words, and it'll be ready approximately this date. Sometimes none of those things work out. It'll be longer or shorter than anticipated, or the manuscript won't be ready, but yeah.
Wild. I never even thought about that being it makes perfect sense because audiobooks a lot of times will come out at the exact same time as they're not gonna, they're getting closer before they get further away. I can hear them going.
I feel like I'm at a pep rally. It's pretty great.
It is. There's a school like near my house, and evidently they've started practicing.
This is a place where you would not want to record audiobooks.
Well, yes. Yeah. You never know. I never know when they're going to start practicing until this happens, basically. They did not practice yesterday. I was at my house at this exact time. They did not practice the day before that.
It's charming.
But between, it's like when they get back from Thanksgiving break through Mardi Gras, they do pick up the practice and they go around these few blocks, which is nice. But again, evidently Thursday at 4 or 5 o'clock is when that's going to be happening. So I might have to move my operation a little bit. Anyway. Okay, so Linda has a question. I think we're still on the audiobook. I listen to books all the time and it seems so hard. Okay, she's talking about the process, and we kind of did talk about what that process is. But it is fascinating to just be able to ask somebody that actually does enough of them. You've been doing it long enough and you do it all the time where you have the answers to all these questions. So I love it.
We could do a whole podcast on process. So
yeah, there's a lot, I'm sure. Yeah, there's a lot. Tell me though, what we're here to talk about, right? Legends and Lattes and Bookshops and Bonedust. I want Leanna to tell us about how she got to read it. So we, in the book industry, and Travis gets books to, that are ARCs to read ahead of time as well. Like we get books sometimes, weeks early, sometimes like a year or more early. We get manuscripts to read. And then it's difficult to talk about them because we can't sell them or we can't really give away too much. But Leanna was able to read Legends and Lattes pretty early, so I want to hear how that happened. Tell us.
So, on the website formerly known as Twitter, somebody that I was following had retweeted. You were tweeting out looking for booksellers, librarians, any early readers for Legends and Lattes, and you were like, "Here's an email address. Let me know." I was like, what does cozy fantasy mean? I was like, I don't think that I know this. I've heard of cozy mysteries, but I don't know what cozy fantasy is. So this was February 2022.
Yep.
And so I sent the email. You very kindly sent many different versions that I could choose from. And I was like, oh no, I don't know how to do this. So I actually had a friend give me an e-reader, and Jody, one of our fabulous social media maven and fellow bookseller, was able to put it on there because I don't do technology very well. And I took it on a trip with I took the little it was the first time I've ever read an ebook, which I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. I could not put it down. I was like, this is the warmest, just kindest fantasy book that I have read in I don't think
Aw.
I've ever read anything quite like it. And so my friends that I was on the trip with were like, "Are you gonna put that book down?" It's like, "It's fine, it's fine. I'll be there at some point." But yeah, I read through the whole thing and I loved it so much, and being able to like watch you, you know, finally the book was coming out and I was able to tell everybody about it, and then Tor picked it up and it started just getting all of this attention, and I just felt like, I don't know, I felt like I was in on some special little secret.
Well, thank you. Thank you for picking up the arc at the beginning. Thank you for sending the email way back when. It's not really been that long, but it feels like a long time.
Feels like it. When I was like trying to think of when it was, and I was like, "Oh my god, was it only last year?" Like that can't time, you know,
Yeah,
flat
it's
circle.
really weird. It really isn't that long ago at all.
It just it feels like forever ago. But I was so excited. I also got an arc of Bookshops and Bonedust, and Fern and we are the same, and I feel just
Fern
such
feels like a
a
cheat to get
enjoy.
booksellers on your side.
Yeah. Well, have you worked in bookstores?
I have not. I have known booksellers and I've had friends who worked in bookstores, but I haven't personally worked in
I've
one.
heard tell of booksellers.
I've heard tales.
Well, you could have fooled me, you know? It
Well,
was,
I
you
mean,
know,
ultimately, booksellers are book people. They're just highly concentrated book people. So I think you can extrapolate from, book people in general. It's just the ultra
yeah.
version.
I feel like it can go one of two ways though when people are writing. If you have not worked in a bookstore and you're writing about booksellers or, you know, bookstores in general, it is either extremely romanticized in a way that it seems cheesy,
Yeah.
or it feels very dire in a way that I don't want people to think that is
Yeah,
how our
yeah.
industry is. And I felt like you hit a nice middle ground, you
Yeah,
know?
it was
And it being
definitely
in a
somewhat
fantasy world,
dire,
it's
but
like but it's a different situation, you
yeah,
know? We're not in this world. We're in a different world.
just the right amount of cynicism.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. We
I love
our
a grumpy bookseller.
You've got to have one. Every bookstore has one. I feel like at Blue Cypress we like switch it off a little bit. Like who's having the day to day, and that person is like allowed to be a little grumpy, and then we switch off because everybody gets. Yeah, you can't have like just one person that's always the grump. Like, look, today's my day. I don't know what it is, but
It's more of a relay.
yeah, it is. Everybody, we all recognize like whose day it is, like, and then you go, okay, all right. Just I don't know what Raina was talking about, but I'll help you. What are we doing? Okay, let's see. We have a couple more questions. Do you have a book coming out in a bookish box in December?
I
That's Bookshops and
believe
Bonedust?
so. I'm pretty sure Bookshops and Bonedust comes out in December in a bookish box. Yes.
Okay. What was it like working with Bookbox? Is the question.
So I was involved in kind of like a feedback thread on the cover artwork. I'm not really like designing it or steering it or anything. I'm just providing, character notes or thoughts or just, making sure that it stays um, within the bounds of what happens in the book, because usually I don't think the artists have read the book yet. So they work off of a brief and put things together. So I'm involved, but I'm not steering the entire process. I've also done kind of similar things for book boxes in the UK, where it's a much bigger deal, where there's a lot more of them, because you've got broken binding and inkstone and fairy loot and everything else. And each one has a slightly different approach, but most of those have used existing art and modified it. And this one was more from the ground up.
Interesting. I like I'm trying to find the Bookish Box that they are referring to, but I think I did. This doesn't have the art on it. There's no picture that I saw, but this is the Bookish Box that that person is referring to. So guys can check it out. I'm pretty sure. But
I don't know if I'm going to find it in
this
sort of
month's
reasonable time.
Oh no, this month's featured book is Bookshops and Bonedust. So I think this is, and it's called The Bookish Box, and that is what they're referring to. So I'm going to go with that. Oh, there's a picture on their Instagram. All right, y'all. You guys have to go find the Instagram. That's like too many steps over for me. I got you one.
It's homework.
That's right. You can find it from there. So there's another. So then I had a US copy, Legends Lattes. So let me ask you this about the US and UK copies, because we have just started being able to get some UK copies of books, and just the design is completely different. Do you get just? Is it similar? Like you basically get here's what we're gonna put on the cover, and then you're like cool or no, or do you have any like input in that?
So I had some limited input on the first book cover, and then I ended up doing the layout for most of the second cover myself. And then I think they did like a last evolution pass on that to make the final. So I was a lot more involved in the second UK cover, the Bookshops and Bonedust one. And I became involved in the other one partway through. Anyway, that's a long and complicated story. But I didn't start out terribly involved and got more involved. And then they also agreed to use the US cover artwork on the end papers, which I appreciated.
Nice. They well, when you said that you got to really design it without the whole long story. Is that because they came to you and said, "Hey, what do you think?" Or was that because you were like, "Hey, look at all
After
this
the
stuff
process on the first one, I just said, "Here's what I think we should do for the second one," and I sent them a prototype.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, that's where I was feeling like, look, this was a lot, and I have a vision. So why don't you just take this?
I figured it might just save some hassle, and yeah. So the way things work in the UK is different than the US. The UK is small. Tor UK is like 3 people, but they're housed within Macmillan. So they take advantage of other Macmillan services. It just operates differently over in the UK than it does in the US. They're kind of different. They're different organizations. And they both work very differently, in my experience so far. My limited experience.
Okay, so we have another question from Chris. Do you have any experience with D&D or other tabletop RPGs? And if so, how does that influence your writing process?
So the last time I really played D&D was in high school, tabletop. I never found a group after that. But I have played lots of digital D&D, and I made action role-playing games for a really long time. So I have read stuff. I have played plenty of digital D&D. I've got Baldur's Gate 3 sitting here with absolutely no time to play it. So I've definitely been influenced by it. And I've absorbed a whole lot of it. I'm pretty sure I own most of the books. But I'm not an active D&D player, at least not tabletop-wise.
All right. So Ziggy is going to leapfrog off that question. And if you were a D&D character, what race class would you be? And I have no idea what 90% of this means. So you can say
it's a really hard answer too, because I was always a digital D&D player. I always played in a party. So it was always about the group. So I am all about the group, which I guess is why I write books about the group. When I used to play D&D, I always played, and even when I played it digitally, I really played boring classes, sword and board stuff, warriors, barbarians, whatever, because then all the other colorful characters were there with personality around me. That sounds really lame. I sound really lame.
I mean, you're the center of the group. I know what I know is that I can't
I'm the author
leave.
insert.
Yeah, I can't go without you because I will get my ass kicked. So basically, I'm gonna follow you around wherever you go, which is kind of my shtick with most video games of this kind. Anyway, I play with someone and I follow them around. I am a great team player. You tell me that's the person we're gonna beat up. That's who I'm gonna beat up. You tell me we need to jump off of the, run down this pathway and jump off the mountain. I'm like, heck yeah, you must know how to play this game. So I'm gonna do what you say. It works out as long as you're with friends.
Absolutely.
So it's great. Yeah, I would just follow you around. I've pinpointed the person, the character that I need to follow in order to stay alive. Yeah. Anyway.
They're back.
They're back.
Perfect.
They're back.
I love it so much.
Let's see. There was another question up here by Elizabeth asked, what is the best book you've read in the last year?
So
I mean, no pressure. You can pick like top 5. It's fine.
I've read several T. Kingfisher books that I really liked. I loved Thornhedge and Nettle and Bone. And I read Paladin's Grace. And on the book that you can't read right now, but I enjoyed it front because it was an arc and doesn't come out until like next summer or something. I read The West Passage by Jared Pekacek. I think that's how you say his last name. Jared, if I murdered your last name, I am sorry. Which has really heavy like Gormenghast vibes, if you've ever read Gormenghast. And I really enjoyed it. That's probably good.
The West Passage is available to pre-order. So
good.
I'm gonna put that link.
I believe it's even illustrated, which is super cool.
Yeah. I love when they put in a good illustration. Even if it's just like the end papers. The end papers are good. That pushes a lot of people over the edge. I'm a sucker for that stuff. I don't know. Leanna, what are those things that Jody got? The layover. Jody just got these like layover pages for a book. What was that? I don't know what those are. I wish we had them to show. I might be able to find a picture, but she just got for this book, they look plastic and they lay over the page of a book and they're like scenes from a book and I don't know where they came from. I don't know. Jody.
Yeah, they're just called page overlays. But I'm trying to
find what it is. But she is the person who has all of those little like extras for her books.
Yeah.
Like if you see it, you have a question of it, you've heard it, you ask Jody, she's like, oh yeah, you mean this thing?
You know what we need to get back to? I remember these when I was a kid. They had books and they had basically little records embedded in the page. And you had like a little handheld thing that you could stick on you could poke it into the hole of the little record embedded in the page and it would play stuff. It would play music or voices or reading or whatever. They were always kids' books, right? But they were super cool. I want that in my books. I
want to see this. Where did you grow up?
In Texas.
My gosh.
I'm old. I'm 46 or something. So I'm sure this was phased out. This is like speak and spell era stuff. But
I had a speak and spell. I mean, I'm only 3 years younger than you, so I don't think that this is only in Texas. I've never heard of this. I did have, I had books that had like records, little 45s that they came with, but they were just reading the story. It wasn't like embedded in the book. This is fascinating. I'm fascinated by this.
I really wish I knew what this thing was called now. It's it's called Talk to Me Books.
Talk to Me Books?
Fisher Price Talk to Me Books.
Wow. I'm in. But I've never heard of that. I love it.
This is what the little device looked like. Let's see if I can paste this in here. Anyway, just to really take us
well, no, I mean I'm
way
in.
Off,
and I completely agree. Now that you've explained what it is, so you can put it over on the in the private chat.
I'll put it in the private chat. There you go.
And then I'll grab it.
Anyway, you held this little device, this incredibly ugly device, over the little record that was embedded in the page, and it would play sounds.
All right, everybody, you can just click on that real quick. It's literally just a picture, and then come back because
I mean, the modern equivalent
never...
is probably like a QR code, and you just point your phone at it, and you're like, "Oh, there we
Oh
go."
yeah, of course, yeah. That would. I think there are. I've seen some QR codes on books now, but I've never seen it for reading a book, which I'm sure that it exists. But I've seen it for some books have book covers that like come alive. Have you seen that?
No, I believe it, but I haven't seen it.
It's like a QR code, and then after you do that, you like point your camera at the book cover,
and it makes
and then
an animation.
it moves. Yeah, it animates.
This is just reminding me that I saw somebody's car recently that had a giant QR code on the back window, and if you look at it, it rickrolled you.
Of course it did.
That's such a good idea.
They just drove around with a rickroll.
And how many of those are there? Like, does every like state or town or something have one of these? I feel like this is.
I don't know. I felt like I wanted it. My town has lots of weird car stuff. There's somebody around here who has a motorcycle that they have put a jet ski onto, so it looks like a jet ski when it drives around. And there's somebody who took the hull of a boat and covered his Chrysler in it, so it looks like he's driving around in a speedboat. I don't know what the deal is around here, but there's a lot of people who do weird automotive stuff.
I mean, both of those sound like things people in New Orleans would do. Like I mean, there's cars that are painted. Like I see them just out there, just painting on their car, and it changes. It changes pretty regularly. There was a penny car where literally they've just stuck pennies
all over it.
And I wonder how that thing weighs.
It's got to be a lot.
It does.
We had a cat car in the neighborhood, and it was just painted with cats all over it. It was a couple that did a lot of like cat rescue stuff, and when the car died, they had a second line for it in the neighborhood. Wow. Which I felt like was excessive, but they really loved that car.
Well, it was known far and wide. Yeah. Everyone loved the car.
Only the cat car.
Okay, so we have another question. If you've listened to the Harry Potter audiobooks, which narrator did you prefer?
Jim Dale.
Okay.
Sorry.
I was like, I don't know is it a faux pas to pick if you're an audiobook narrator and then you have to.
Oh, no. I think all audiobook narrators have an opinion. But yeah, it's Jim Dale, clearly.
I mean, I agree.
Stephen Fry has a lovely voice, but Jim Dale has really excellent character voices. Some people think they're too much or they're over the top or whatever, but they're incredibly distinct. You always know who's talking, and I don't know. I love them. They really contribute to my mental movie.
And he's particularly good for the Harry Potter books because there's so many different characters. He's also the one. Did he do the narrations first? Because he's definitely the first one that I heard.
I honestly don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if they had done them somewhat at the same time. They just did them separately for the UK and US releases because of the differences in language.
Right.
Because of the Philosopher's Stone, Sorcerer's Stone split. Or at least I assume that's why they did it, that they had to do two versions.
Right.
But it's always been weird to me that there were two versions. And for the longest time, it was really hard to hear whichever one was not from your country.
I think Jim Dale's definitely the one that I heard first.
Yeah, he was the US version when everybody got it on CDs.
Uh-huh. And then I re-listened. The way I did Harry Potter is I actually didn't come into Harry Potter until the 5th book. So I read them all. And then as each book would come out, I would listen and read the newest one. So I've heard on audio like those first 3 or 4 multiple times. Yeah, yep. Leading up to.
My wife used to listen to them to go to sleep at night, so I have heard them a lot. I can hear the listening library little jingle at the beginning right now in my head.
That is kind of great. Like just as comfort or like her first listen, like her first.
She had trouble sleeping, and so having that audio background helped her go to sleep.
Yeah, I kind of love that as your comfort audio book.
I listened to Neil Gaiman audio.
He's got a great reading voice.
Mm-hmm.
He's got an excellent reading voice, very soothing.
I like listening to him read instructions. That one's my favorite one. It's so good.
So you're just random Neil Gaiman. You're just listening to like YouTube.
Just calming. Something that I can just I don't have to pay attention to.
Love it. So somebody else listened to Harry Potter to go to sleep. Oh my God,
Yeah, I'm
I do
not
that too.
surprised.
It's my lullaby. I love it. I don't listen to audio like books to fall asleep because if I can't even listen to music that I know to fall asleep because my
Yeah.
brain is following it. My brain is either is singing along or following the melody or something. Like it's got to be something I don't know or I can't really follow. If it's an audiobook, I will eventually like pass out, but I'm
Yeah.
literally like following it along in my brain cannot stop.
Yeah. I don't have to do that. I'm one of those really annoying people who just goes to sleep. Um, I've hit that point where if I read like a page of a book, I'm just instantly out. It's just like I can't be in a bed and read a page of a book without immediately collapsing.
No, that's where I get most of my reading done
I
is
wish.
going to sleep.
But on the other hand, it is a nice superpower to have. I'm tired. I want to go to sleep. Okay, I'll just read a page. Perfect. I'm out.
like how long did it take for you to read this book? Like 400 days.
400
One
days.
page at a
Yeah, I have to go
time.
sit somewhere. I have to be up and out and nowhere near prone.
It's good to know, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, I do most of my reading that way. And in my hammock, which I have not gotten enough hammock reading done. Like, and now it's cold again.
Yeah.
I don't like it. Let's see. Somebody said, I just fell asleep on a plane listening to Travis read The Engineer by Will White. Travis, do you have a favorite voice you've done from The Engineer or any of Will's books?
I mean, Brian is a lot of fun to do in The Engineer, and from Will's books. I mean, Orthos is probably one of the most fun ones to do because he's a 10-ton turtle who's on fire. He's great.
Mean, yeah. Okay, so this
I'm gonna check these out.
Right? How do you do that? So we talk a little bit about process, but like when you're reading, when you like get that character like a 10-ton turtle on fire, what you're like, oh, this is the voice I'm going to do. Like, how do you come up with that? It just go. Stop talking.
I mean, a lot of them, it just seems obvious. You know that a giant turtle he's a little bit regal and he's very kind of rumbly and he's always going on about being a dragon and his voice just really presents itself. A lot of times though, their dialogue or their description kind of lets you know, or sometimes I'll imagine who I would cast in the movie version or who I would get to do the voices for an animation. And that just kind of gets me in the right headspace for those characters, usually. Sometimes it takes a little more development to figure out, but sometimes it's just immediately you know.
Okay. So what made you, we're going to pull back to the books, your books, not other people's books.
Alas.
What made you want to write a book? I mean, you got that, right? Because you've got the background in creating for the video games. So there's a lot of that going on. And then reading the audiobooks, you have an idea and a feel for how all this comes together and other people are doing it. But when did you're like, this is mine now. I'm going to take
I wanted to write a novel since I was a kid. And I tried to write back in high school and I tried to do Nano any number of times over the years. And I just never managed to write a novel. Always got stuck. And this is just the first one that I finished. So I always wanted to do it. And doing it was definitely informed by narrating because you learn really quickly after reading thousands of hours of other people's books out loud what you like and what you don't like in a way that I think it takes you longer to figure out if you're writing it yourself because you're encountering problems and situations and other things that you wouldn't have encountered because you would have had to think of them to write them in the first place. And so you really just understand what you like. And that's remarkably helpful because I think a lot of us, when we sit down to write, we don't actually know why we like the things we like very well. And we have to write it down and read it back to discover which is which. And so it's super helpful. And as far as writing this book, I read all kinds of like high action adventure stuff all the time, which is great. But it was the middle of COVID and I just wanted the Great British Bake Off and Fixer Upper and that was what I wanted. I wanted a Hallmark movie. So
Mhm.
this fantasy Hallmark movie. Um, and it was also just not threatening to write. Like, it was a simple idea. So if it didn't work out, who cared? It was an orc opening a coffee shop. Nobody was going to mourn the fact that this book did not get written. But then it turned out to be more than I expected it to be. And it was more earnest than I thought it was going to be and less tongue in cheek. And here we are. It's been very weird.
Well, I mean, because I think we all wanted the same thing. I mean, we were all sitting at home not wanting to watch any more news and not wanting to, watch anything that was going to stress us out. And then even as we're pulling out of COVID, it's like at least for me and other people that I've talked to, like we feel so close to that potential, like that edge, more so than I did back before COVID. Like I was joking literally with Jamie Attenberg 3-4 days ago. I know. Name drop. And we were saying, like, we used to joke, like, well, if the world doesn't end or if the whatever, and we're like, oh wait, that's not as funny anymore because literally that we know what that's
hanging
like.
Fire right now. It's not amusing. No red weddings, please.
Exactly. Like I don't need any more of that, and I still kind of don't need it. And so even though Legends Lattes came out a bit after, right, COVID, we're all feeling comfortable a little bit again. It's that's still like that world I want to live in. Like
everybody's got a hangover.
Yes, so much. So it's, I don't know. I think that's why everybody like is really into it. I mean, the writing is good and the characters are great, and it's so heartwarming. But it's just like, yes, this is. I want to root for people like these characters having this coffee shop, and that is the adversity. That's the thing. Already, we all know that that's hard, starting your own business, and I'm like, yes, that's.
We just want the small businesses. Just give us a small business thriving. That's all I want to see.
It's all kinds of wish fulfillment. I'm finding friends in my 40s. This is amazing.
Exactly. Exactly. We're all just living in that moment where we're like, can we just have a tiny piece of adversity that we have to get over in the grand scheme of the world? Like I don't need a pandemic. I don't need a war. I don't need any of that.
I just need a fantasy novel about success filing my taxes.
Yes. And that is stressful enough. They yell at you and you'd have to figure out math and should I hire somebody or should I not? And then at the end, there's like a small return check. That's all I need. like success is I thought I wasn't going to get a return. But wait, here's $54.38. Amazing. Yes. Oh my goodness. Okay, we have one more. Let's see this comment. Travis, I am in your Discord and have listened to you live narrate books. That's really cool, which is awesome. Fun. Do you ever feel nervous about having people observing your work so closely?
Definitely not anymore. Any nervousness was shed long ago. So I'm pretty comfortable with it at this point. It's just, yeah. It's like anything else. You do it long enough in front of people, and it's just all the worry rubs off.
Yeah, basically,
which is very useful for podcasts, by the way.
I'm sure it is. We just keep going. It doesn't matter. We'll get there. We'll just talk about whatever the stress is low. Nothing is going to happen while doing this that is going to be that consequential.
Mm-hmm.
Would be good. Elizabeth also says she's been reading a lot of cozy books for this exact reason. Do you have, so what are some other cozy books?
Well, I mean, I think T. Kingfisher's stuff often kind of dips into that. You got things like the art of I'm forgetting it. The Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that also you could say that Thorn Hedge kind of edges into cozy territory pretty heavily.
It's like dark cozy.
It depends on where you fall. There's some darkness. I think you got to have a little darkness in your cozy fantasy to make it work. Otherwise, it just becomes saccharine, and it's not fully cozy. On the movie front, I think like almost all Studio Ghibli movies are basically cozy fantasy. And Terry Pratchett, I think, is often kind of cozy fantasy.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, Terry Pratchett for sure.
I think there's lots of stuff out there. It just hasn't had the label pinned to it before. And I think there's lots of cozy slice of life fiction, animation, and mangas and stuff in Japan. That's really, really a big deal that a lot of people just aren't exposed to.
Mm-hmm. With that, we see Leanna and I both read a lot of Japanese translated fiction, and a lot of it is the same. Even the ones that in the end you're like, oh, I think he was trying to tell me something, you know. As you're on the ride, it's mostly just like you're just on the ride. Yeah. Even if maybe there was something there. I am reading right now the most recent in the Murder Bot series, and despite the murder in the title of the series, it's actually like it's fun and
it's
funny, and it's charming. Like I just there is a little bit of murder sometimes.
I just want to be left alone with my movies.
But really, I just sort of watch the
most relatable.
Netflix. That's really just, could everybody just leave me alone so I can watch Netflix is basically Murderbot.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. And it's just like small adventures in between because they have to. They have to go figure this thing out that has interrupted them, and they're okay. Well, let's go do that. They'll come back and watch show. Okay, so after this interview, will we be able to get signed copies at Blue Cypress? Okay, so obviously Travis is not here in person to give us signed copies. Excellent question, though. We'll see if we can get some book plates, some signed book plates.
Delighted to sign them.
We will probably be able to do that. So we'll get on that, and we can let you know as soon as the book plates arrive. It's amazing. Well, y'all, we did it. We made it.
If only the marching band would walk by at this exact moment.
Oh, yes, it's. I mean, it's completely dark outside now. So.
Hey.
Wait, I feel like I do have to ask.
Please.
Do you have more plans for Viv? Are we going to get more books?
I signed for 3 more books from Tor. Those can be whatever, but at least one of them will be in this world. Will Viv show up? I don't know.
Even if she's in the background, I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, that was my plan for the original second book that didn't get written, was to have her just pop her head in. So we'll see how that goes.
It's really, I mean, I love her and I love Fern, but really it's the world for me.
I just like meeting new people and having them get together and interact. That's my favorite part, is that you get interesting people together that I like to see together. I just like seeing them in the same place doing stuff.
Again, just pick a different kind of small business and
I really don't want to do only small businesses. Honestly, the second book was going to be a fantasy mystery. It was going to be like Fantasy Murder, She Wrote, because I wanted to immediately not do a business. So I'm kind of hoping to get back to a mystery. We'll see.
As long as it's not a fantasy big box store.
Right? I know. As soon as you said I don't really want to do small businesses, I was like, oh crap. What are we doing now? Like, are we going to the mall? What's happening? Like, you could go to the mall. That would be a whole different adventure. That's all. That's it. Just going from one end to the other end of the mall. The entire book takes place in that.
That's my nightmare.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, but you'll make it funny and charming, so it'll be great. We'll read it. Okay. Well, Travis, thank you so much for joining us for Book Banter.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, yes. And thanks all of you for commenting, for watching. We truly couldn't do it without all of you guys. And Leanna, thanks for joining me. It was great.
Thanks for having me. It was so nice to talk to you, Travis.
Thank you. It was great to talk to you too.
Cool. All right, y'all. Have a good night.
Good
Bye.
night.